Hey guys, it's Jonah. Welcome to the channel where I'm going to give an in-depth view of my real-life Silicon Valley quest to build the next big thing. Today, we're going to look at my first ever business in 2014, a grocery delivery business. Now, I think it's important to note this was 2014, not 2020. 2020 has been a very tough year for all of us, unless you're the grocery delivery business, that is. Look at Amazon's stock price. Instacart's valuation doubled, but in 2014, grocery delivery was viewed as for the spoiled and for the lazy. I hate grocery shopping. For being honest, I'm not even a big fan of walking. I once actually tried to get "I hate walking" inscribed inside of my suit jacket, so the suit salesman convinced me that was a poor idea. But let's just say walking through the winter, the snow in Kingston, Canada, carrying 20 pounds of groceries, not my idea of a good time. One day I was doing my weekly trudge, and I thought I would pay anyone anything to avoid this nightmare. On that day, Groceries in Bed was born. Most students at my university did their shopping at Metro, a large Canadian grocery store. The primary reason for this was probably because it was close, but also it offered a student discount twice a week. I think it was 10 or 15%, something like that. I don't really remember honestly, but my idea was that I had access to the student discount, and I'd only hire other students that had access to the student discount. We would only charge 10 or 15% or whatever the student discount was. This meant that for non-students, or students that were too busy to shop on discount days, Groceries in Bed would deliver groceries to their door for the exact same price, for essentially no cost, versus what they would normally spend grocery shopping. Looking back, hearing myself make that same pitch again, I'm honestly filled with the same naive sense of optimism and I guess faith in the future that I was back then. But here's what happened. So the first step, I guess, was actually building Groceries in Bed. And as I mentioned, I was a business student, and my technical expertise, well, my idea of technical expertise was bragging to employers about my Excel skills. I knew Microsoft Word. Needless to say, I need to hire someone to build the website for me. I reached out to my friend who was also a business student but had taken a few coding classes, and he quickly whipped together a site, which, looking back, was just a WordPress site with a form, honestly. You couldn't even pick which grocery items you wanted from a list. You couldn't see which things were available. You're basically just entering in a form your grocery list. But it probably provided all the functionality I really needed. He charged me a few $100. Looking back, maybe a bit of a scam, but now that I had a website that could in theory accept grocery orders, I need to actually find someone to make those orders. So fortunately at Queens, I think I had a bit of an advantage that I didn't actually have in future startups I've been working on. But it was very easy to reach my audience, at least the student portion of that audience, because we had a Facebook group for all students. Everyone was very active. So I posted on that group a link to my new Facebook page I'd created for Groceries in Bed, and I quickly had over 100 likes on the page, which was promising. And I continued to post in that Facebook group throughout the year, honestly. Keep reaching new students, telling them about promotions or when our delivery windows open. The second thing I did was I took my friend who was a business partner and I expanded his roles to model, and I made these flyers, which I would pass out door to door, and I attached Halloween candy that we had left from a party so that they didn't get lost with the rest of the mail. And these advertised, like, get your grocery delivery, including student discount, is basically free, stuff like that. And sure enough, on the first day, I refreshed my email over and over, waiting for the onslaught, I guess. And sure enough, Groceries in Bed actually did get an order. One order. And now I think it's important to say now, I thought ahead pretty well. I didn't want to deal with delivering a $1 chocolate bar, going through all of that time, so I instituted a $5 minimum delivery charge. What I didn't think about was people that made orders that were both cheap and very heavy. So I opened this first order, and it was for 60 bottles of water. Now, this was a bit of a nightmare. Very heavy to carry, took a long time. We only got that $5 minimum charge. It took about an hour renting my friend's car from him since I didn't have one. And I thought, well, this seems like a bit of an outlier. Turns out that was by far our best customer. Well, I use the term best, but maybe most frequent customer. And they ordered the 60 bottles of water every single week, about 40 bottles of flavored water, or no, 40 unflavored water, 20 flavored. I don't know how anyone went through so much bottled water, but Groceries in Bed was their go-to. Fortunately, me and my friend were doing the trips ourselves. We weren't paying anyone. to deliver the water. Needless to say, if we were paying someone even minimum wage, it would have been quite unprofitable. And over the weeks, a few more orders started coming in. They weren't all for water, thank God. Um, with that said, a whole host of challenges popped up that I definitely had not seen coming. First, shopping just took way longer than I had anticipated. My personal shopping took about 10 minutes. I got the same items every week: some ground beef, some annies, maybe an apple to make my mom happy. Shopping for other people took, well, it started around an hour. We got down to maybe half an hour, but it was spent searching for items, walking in circles. Secondly, people ordered items that weren't in stock or didn't exist. I don't know what they were thinking. It's honestly a problem that plagues grocery delivery companies today, but it was really a struggle for me to deal with. And we would text people saying, is this an acceptable substitute? We'd wait on their response. We wouldn't get anything. We'd give up on it. Right as we were leaving the grocery store, they'd text back, no, yes, we want that substitute, or no, that's actually not an acceptable substitute. It was quite tough. I remember still spending like 10 minutes debating in an aisle with my friend whether rock salt or kosher salt or some other salt matched the salt that the user had asked for. The next problem was payment. So we started out only accepting cash, but it soon became clear our customers valued the ability to pay with credit or debit. So we ordered a Square card reader. Functionality-wise, it worked great. We could now accept credit or debit payments, but they took about a 3% cut of every transaction. And we were debating, should we be swallowing this? Should we be passing this on to the consumer? I think we ended up passing it on to the consumer in most cases, which didn't thrill them because the 3% was actually already a large percentage of the overall amount we were charging for our grocery delivery service, which was like 10 or 15%. And looking back, it's a bit worrying that we spent like an hour working and took a cut that wasn't that different from a payment processor. Then there was the car I was borrowing. So my friend was nice enough to lend me the car for about $4 an hour, which was cheaper than I could get any car rental service, but definitely ate into our relatively non-existent profits. And one day in the middle of the winter, unfortunately, as I was backing up with my rear view covered in snow, I gently bumped into another car. And fortunately, there was no damage, but I had to tell my friend that I was renting the car from, at least in good conscience. And I think it made him more reluctant to lend me the car in the future, which is definitely fair enough. We operated the business for about 6 or 7 more months. And we kept up that twice a week, 2-hour delivery windows where we did the shopping and the delivery. And we tried various optimizations, swapping off between delivering and grocery shopping, but we still couldn't really get the time for an individual order under 30 minutes. So we couldn't ever support more than 4 or 5 grocery deliveries in a day. And we also couldn't really afford to pay people to take on those roles because of the extremely small margins that we were bringing in. If I'd had a bit more of a Silicon Valley mindset, maybe I would have said, it's worth it for the growth to take that hit to profitability, to hire more people, quickly be able to scale. But sadly, I didn't. I was still concerned about foolish metrics like revenue and profit. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so we didn't hire people. We kept it fairly small, doing those grocery deliveries every day. But what I think really was the nail in the coffin for the business was one day when my friend didn't lend me his car. I'm not sure, maybe he was using it or maybe he was still worried from the time that I had bumped into that other car. But I had to do the grocery deliveries by hand walking. And it was a snowy day and I was carrying someone else's groceries walking through the snow and it hit me. I'd started groceries in bed because I hated grocery shopping. And now I spent most of my time, or at least way too much of my time, doing grocery shopping for other people. As the year ended, I slowly stopped promoting groceries in bed as much and eventually stopped accepting orders. Now, back in 2020, as grocery delivery has taken off, I've received a lot of messages from people saying, wow, if you'd stuck with groceries in bed, you really would have killed it. And I'm honestly not sure if that's the case. But I think with any entrepreneurial endeavor, success or failure, it's worth looking back with new perspective and seeing what you would have done differently, what you learned from the experience. So here's what I learned from mine, and here's what I would have done differently. The first problem, I didn't charge enough. I fell so in love with the idea of making my service virtually free and a no-brainer to use, and charging only the student discount amount, that I made it virtually unfeasible to continue offering that service. Now, you could point out for students, they're pretty price sensitive, maybe they wouldn't have been willing to pay more. But I think this actually brings me to my second point, which is audience. I targeted students because there who I had easy access to. But really, it's the adults, the non-students that have both more money and less time, and who don't have access to the student discount. And so for those people, if I charged, say, an additional 15%, they probably would have been completely fine paying it. They wouldn't have had access to the initial 15% discount, and we would have doubled our profits. It could have actually been a business that scaled. I could have hired people, brought them on. Well, live and learn, I suppose. I'm honestly still curious if I'd kept with it, if Groceries in Bed would still be alive today, if I could compete using that 15% discount as a competitive advantage over other grocery delivery competitors to provide better pricing. But I've moved on, and it was still a good initial experience. It may actually, despite having far less users, be as close to a revenue earning, profitable business as any of my later projects. And now in 2020, I love how popular grocery delivery has become. What was past laziness on my part, maybe now retrospectively I can view as forward thinking. I actually, living in San Francisco, went 5 months this year without setting foot in a grocery store. That's true progress. I've built a wide variety of projects since Groceries in Bed. Some successes, mostly failures, some technical, more technical recently, some non-technical. But hit the subscribe button, follow along for more of these stories, and together we'll build the next big thing.